If you rely on SNAP to keep food on the table, 2026 is not just another year on the calendar. It's a turning point. The Trump administration, through Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, is now saying that every single SNAP recipient may have to reapply for benefits as part of a new nationwide fraud crackdown, right after a shutdown that already delayed and disrupted a lot of payments. At the same time, new work rules and spending cuts are tightening who qualifies, how long they can stay on SNAP, and what they have to do to keep their card active. All of this is happening while food prices are still high, and many families are already stretched to the limit. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something important. Are you worried that you might lose your SNAP benefits or miss a deadline in 2026? Let me know in the comments with your city and state, and tell me if you've already seen delays, confusing letters, or new work questions where you live in this video. I'm going to break down what these new rules mean, who is most at risk, and what you can do right now to protect yourself and your family. And if you care about updates on SNAP, Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and other benefits, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Social Security Post so you never miss the next alert. To understand how big these changes are, you have to see the scale of SNAP today. In fiscal year 2024, SNAP served an average of about 41.7 million people per month. And through most of 2025, that number has hovered around 42 million people in roughly 22 to 23 million households. That's about 1 in 8 residents in the United States. Federal spending on SNAP in 2024 was just under $100 billion, and the average benefit was around $187 to $190 per person per month, which works out to about $6 a day in help for food. That's not luxury money, that's basic groceries. Adults between 18 and 59 make up the largest share of recipients, followed by children, and then seniors 60 and older. SNAP is not just for one group of people. It supports families with kids, seniors on fixed incomes, workers whose wages are too low, and people with disabilities whose checks and part-time jobs don't keep up with rent and food. Many households already face strict income and asset limits, regular recertification, interviews, and documentation checks. On top of that, there are existing penalties for fraud and rules about reporting income changes. So when you hear talk about cracking down or rebuilding the program, remember this. We're not starting with a wide-open system. We're talking about piling new stress, new paperwork, and new risk of losing benefits onto a program that millions of low-income households already find complicated and scary to navigate. Now let's talk about the headline that has everyone on edge. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins has announced that all SNAP recipients will be required to reapply for their benefits. This announcement comes after investigations in 29 states that, according to the administration, uncovered around 186,000 accounts linked to people who were deceased or otherwise ineligible, and other signs of misuse. They are using those numbers to argue that the current system allows too much waste and abuse, and that the only way to clean it up is to make every one of the roughly 42 million SNAP recipients go back through the application process. But here's the key detail. We still don't have a clear, official timeline or a step-by-step plan from USDA. SNAP already requires people to recertify every 6 to 12 months in most states, and many have recently gone through reapprovals, especially after the shutdown disruptions. What the administration is describing sounds more like a one-time reset, layered on top of those normal recertifications. Anti-hunger advocates point out that official data shows the vast majority of SNAP payments go to eligible people, and that confirmed trafficking fraud, selling benefits for cash, is estimated at around 1% of benefits, even though improper payment rates, overpayments, and underpayments combined were about 11.7% in 2023. In other words, there are mistakes and problems, but a nationwide forced reapplication could end up punishing a lot of honest households who simply miss a letter, a call, or an appointment. On top of the reapplication push, there is already a major shift in SNAP work rules that started with the debt ceiling agreement, and then went further under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2025. Traditionally, able-bodied adults without dependents, often called ABAWDS, could only receive SNAP for 3 months in a 36-month period unless they worked or participated in a qualifying activity for at least 80 hours per month, roughly 20 hours a week. That rule used to apply to adults 18 to 49 in many places, but Congress has now expanded it to cover older age groups. And the new law adds even more categories like some parents of teenagers, older adults in their 50s and early 60s, certain veterans, and some former foster youth, depending on the state and how waivers are handled. Some people are still exempt. Those who are medically unfit for work, pregnant individuals, many caregivers, and people who meet disability definitions, as well as older adults who fall under special rules. But the bottom line is that more people than ever before are being told, show us 80 hours a month or your SNAP will end. Nonpartisan analyses, including work by the Congressional Budget Office, estimate that a couple of million people over the coming years could lose SNAP or cycle off and on repeatedly because they cannot meet or document these hours. This is especially harsh in rural areas and small towns where there may be almost no jobs, no bus system, and limited childcare, yet the rules still assume that work is easy to find. For an able-bodied adult without dependents, missing a few shifts, losing a job, or forgetting to turn in a form can now mean not just less food, it can mean no SNAP at all for months. Beyond what is already law, there is a long list of ideas being discussed by lawmakers, think tanks, and commentators that could further shrink SNAP. Some proposals focus on tightening income and asset rules, such as lowering the gross income limit from about 130% of the federal poverty line closer to 100%, or rolling back broad-based categorical eligibility, so states can no longer use flexible rules that let more working families qualify. Others talk about reversing state-level flexibility on the vehicle test, so that owning a modest but reliable car, which is often essential for getting to work, could once again push a family over the limit and cut off their SNAP. These types of changes would mainly hit low-wage workers who are doing exactly what policymakers say they want: working, but still not earning enough to escape food insecurity. There are even more aggressive ideas floating around the debate. Some voices are calling for mandatory drug testing of SNAP recipients, tougher or even lifetime bans for people with certain drug-related felonies, stricter rules around lottery or gambling winnings, and stronger penalties for trading EBT cards. Others talk about expanding photo EBT requirements, real-time data matching with IRS and immigration databases, and eventually linking benefits to some form of digital ID. It's important to be clear, many of these concepts are not current law, but they reflect a political climate that is increasingly focused on surveillance, restriction, and punishment as the main tools for managing SNAP. For people on the program, that means more documentation, more chances to be flagged, and more anxiety that a technical issue could be treated like intentional fraud. When you look at all of these changes together, some groups clearly face more danger than others. At the top of the list are able-bodied adults without dependents, especially those between their mid-20s and early 60s who live in high unemployment areas. They're the main target of the new work rules and time limits. Also at risk are people in mixed-status households, where some family members are citizens or lawful permanent residents and others are not. They often fear interacting with the system and may avoid recertifying or appealing mistakes. In addition, SSI and SSDI recipients who receive small benefits and rely on SNAP to fill the gap could be hurt by proposals that end automatic links between disability and SNAP eligibility or that tighten resource tests. But the impact doesn't stop with the person whose name is on the EBT card. If one adult in a family loses SNAP, other relatives often have to step in, using their Social Security checks, disability benefits, or small paychecks to buy extra groceries. That can strain entire households. Grandparents helping adult children, siblings helping each other, or a single working parent suddenly feeding an extra mouth when a relative's benefits are cut. Remember, the average SNAP benefit of about $187 to $190 per month per person may not sound huge to Washington, but losing that support can be the difference between paying the light bill, buying medicine, or keeping food in the fridge. When these changes push people off SNAP without truly improving their income, the burden doesn't disappear. It just gets shifted onto already stressed families, food banks, and local charities. So what can you do right now while all of this is still unfolding? First, treat 2026 like a year when paperwork and preparation really matter. Start gathering and organizing key documents, photo IDs for everyone in the household, social security numbers, pay stubs or self-employment records, award letters for Social Security or SSI, rent or mortgage statements, utility bills, and any medical or disability paperwork that shows why you cannot work or why your hours are limited. If your state has work programs tied to SNAP, keep proof of your hours, schedules, pay statements, or letters from volunteer or training programs. Having all of this ready will make it much easier to respond quickly if a sudden reapplication notice shows up in your mailbox or online account. Second, make sure your contact information is correct with your state SNAP office. After the recent shutdown, some states had delays, backlogs, and mixed communication on benefits, and now the federal government is layering this new reapplication push on top of everything else. If your mailing address, phone number, or email has changed, update it immediately. Most states also offer online portals where you can check your case status. Create an account and log in regularly if that's available. If you get a letter you don't understand, don't ignore it. Reach out to legal aid, community organizations, food banks, or advocacy groups in your area. Many have staff or volunteers whose entire job is to help people navigate SNAP and other benefits. And be careful, if someone texts or calls you asking for your EBT card number or PIN to protect your benefits, assume it's a scam and contact your state directly. Putting it all together, here's the reality. Between the plan for everyone on SNAP to reapply, the tougher work requirements expanding into older age groups and more categories, and a long list of proposed changes targeting income, assets, and even personal behavior, 2026 is shaping up to be a historic shakeup for food assistance in America. Some people will see only paperwork headaches, but for millions of others, this could mean gaps in benefits, permanent cutoffs, or impossible choices between food, medicine, and rent. And all of this is happening while the cost of living is still high and the job market is uneven, especially for people with health problems, caregiving duties, or limited transportation. I want to hear from you because your story helps other viewers understand what's really happening on the ground. Have you already faced a SNAP cutoff, delay, or confusing recertification notice in your state? Drop a comment with your city and state and tell us what you're seeing. Are things getting stricter, or are you still waiting for clarity? My goal here on Social Security Post is to take these complicated laws, bills, and headlines and translate them into clear, real-life information you can actually use to protect yourself and your family. If you found this helpful, please like this video, subscribe to Social Security Post, and turn on notifications because the rules around SNAP, Social Security, SSI, and SSDI are changing fast, and you deserve to know what's coming before it lands in your mailbox.